In this video we are going to talk about the top conspiracy theory Apollo 11. So before starting this video, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. When people set foot on the moon for the first time 50 years ago, they left behind a flag, their footprints, and for some, a path of doubt. While the vast majority of people on Earth rejoiced at humanity's great achievement, a small minority of skeptics just raised their eyebrows and concocted some outlandish beliefs. The most well-known of these hypotheses proposes that NASA lied about humans setting foot on the moon and instead organized an elaborate hoax instead. The landings on the moon were staged. Apollo 11 didn't happen. The surface of the moon has never been walked on by humans. Have you heard it all before? It's been 50 years since Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first humans to set foot on the surface of the moon, and yet conspiracy theories surrounding the landings on the moon are still going strong. This is cause for concern. The first humans to set foot on the moon did so as part of the American space mission known as Apollo 11. On July 20, 1969, Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle. 6 hours and 39 minutes later, on July 21, 1969, Armstrong became the first human to foot onto the surface of the moon. Aldrin was the lunar module pilot. It was the fifth crewed mission of NASA's Apollo program, and it was launched by a Saturn V rocket from Kennedy Space Center on Merritt Island, Florida, on July 16 at 13:32 Universal Time Coordinated. Apollo 11 was the name of the rocket that carried it into space. A command module with a cabin for the 3 astronauts was the only part of the Apollo spacecraft that made it back to Earth. The service module provided the command module with propulsion, electrical power, oxygen, and water. The lunar module had 2 stages, a descent stage for landing on the moon and an ascent stage for placing the astronauts back into lunar orbit. The command module was the only part of the Apollo spacecraft that returned to Earth. After being delivered to the surface of the moon by the 3rd stage of the Saturn V, the astronauts disengaged their spacecraft from the rocket and continued their journey for another 3 days until entering lunar orbit. After that, Armstrong and Aldrin boarded the Eagle, and on July 20, they touched down in the Sea of Tranquility. The ascent stage of Eagle was utilized by the astronauts in order to get away from the lunar surface and meet up with Collins in the command module. Before they executed the operations that drove Columbia out of the final of its 30 lunar orbits and onto a route back to Earth, they ejected Eagle from the Columbia spacecraft. After spending more than 8 days in space, they made their way back to Earth and splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on July 24. The first step that Armstrong took onto the surface of the moon was shown live on television throughout the world as it happened. He referred to the occasion as one little step for a man, one tremendous leap for mankind. The accusations of being a fake keep coming, despite the fact that there is a lot of material available online that debunks this conspiracy theory. Why? According to certain ideas of conspiracies, the landings on the moon were faked by NASA in order to protect the organization from public humiliation and guarantee that it would continue to get financing. Because most conspiracy theorists believe that sending men to the moon at the time was impossible, they argue that fake moon landings were required in order to meet President John F. Kennedy's 1961 goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth by the end of the decade. This goal was set in 1961. In point of fact, NASA delivered a report to the United States Congress in 1973 outlining the expense of the Apollo expedition, which was estimated to be $25.4 billion US. People who believe that the United States did not send astronauts to the moon have produced their own evidence that the landing on the moon was staged. They question why the flag that astronaut Neil Armstrong planted on the surface of the moon could not possibly be rippling as a result of the absence of air on the moon and ask why this could not be the case. The ripples were caused not by the bending of the metal frame that housed the flag but rather by the bending of the frame itself by the astronauts. The absence of stars in the images taken during the Apollo 11 mission is cited as evidence by proponents of the conspiracy theory that the event was faked. Since NASA was unable to imitate the total beauty of the lunar night sky, the organization decided against including any stars at all in the image. One such possibility is that the sun shines brightly enough to illuminate not only the astronauts but also the lunar terrain itself. Even though it appears to be nighttime on the moon, keep in mind that it is actually daytime there. If you want to capture a picture of an area that is very well illuminated, the shutter speed of your camera needs to be very fast, and the aperture needs to be set very narrowly. When conditions are like that, it's impossible for faint objects like stars to be seen clearly. If there was a landing on the moon, why didn't a cloud of dust be created when the lander touched down on the surface of the moon? In point of fact, the lander spent the vast majority of its time flying in a horizontal plane, and the thrusters that controlled its landing were not aimed in an upward direction. The dust became electrically charged when it was exposed to sunlight, which was another factor that contributed to its ability to adhere to the surface of the moon. People who believe everything that happened in 1969 was a hoax will not be accepted, according to one of the astronauts who actually walked on the moon during that year. One more thing, crosshairs. The very act of uttering the phrase bulletin board conjures up mental pictures of a red yarn web that looks like a laser and covers a bulletin board. However, are you able to explain why some of the camera's crosshairs appeared to be behind various things in the photographs taken during NASA's lunar landing? Thanks. You can't do it. However, it has come to light that you are able to. It's also feasible that practically every conspiracy theory about the moon landing will be shown to be false, and there are hundreds of these theories to pick from. On July 20, 1969, the Apollo 11 lunar module managed to perform a successful landing on the moon. In spite of the fact that we have unambiguous evidence of what took place, anywhere between 6 and 20% of American citizens do not believe it truly took place. There is also the questionable physical evidence of the moon landing, which conspiracy theorists have spent decades dissecting and analyzing. Even though there are many different angles from which shadows can be seen in images, there should really only be one light source in space, and that would be the sun. Why was the American flag waving when there was no wind to move it and it was in the middle of a vacuum? When the Apollo 11 spacecraft landed on the moon's surface, why wasn't there a crater there? If there is no water on the moon, then there is no reason for astronauts' boots to make imprints on the surface. What do you think about the crosshairs, in general? The target, of course, is in the sights. The crosshairs that can be seen in a number of shots taken by Apollo appear to sometimes be placed behind the subjects that are portrayed in the images. If the images were real, then it is impossible for this to happen, which leads one to believe that they were painted by mistake. However, tests carried out on Earth have shown that extremely bright objects make the crosshairs look less distinct than they actually are. When these images are copied or scanned, some of the finer details are completely lost, creating the false appearance that the crosshair is located behind the item in certain shots. Others have brought to light a peculiarity that can be seen in a photograph of a moon rock that was obtained during the Apollo 16 moon mission. It looks like the letter C has been scrawled on it as if the item were a lettered prop from a movie. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.